So this is Abigail. It's a handcrafted game made by the three of us, and we started this game as our thesis project at the NYU Game Center. That's kind of how it brought us together. And kind of like our core question that we're hoping to answer, or at least like get closer to answering with this talk, is how do we create a city that feels alive and familiar? And so, first of all, it's a handcrafted game made by me, Biagi. I'm a systems designer and visual artist. I have experience like with indie games and a lot of tabletop stuff. I'm from Cleveland. We got Antonio from Rio de Janeiro. He's a technical designer and programmer with a full stack engineering background. Isabelle, she's from Oakland, and she's a narrative designer and producer with roots in theater. But together we all write, we all cook, we all craft, we all design, and we believe in radical collaboration that make games full of love, humor, and emotional truth. So what the felt is Abigail? It's a 2D narrative game, adventure game, where our protagonist is fantastically transported to her hometown in Kiln Bay, a city handcrafted over hundreds of years by its inhabitants out of felt, clay, and paper. In Kiln Bay, the main form of communication is Azulejo, a symbolic game of meaning-making based on collectible tiles representing people, things, and places. It's played differently across the city and can take the form of memories, divination, magical transformations, and of course, games. Abigail must use Azulejo to navigate a powder keg of her neglected relationships. And we have a quick little trailer just to give you a flavor of what the game is. And we're not allowed to turn this on. Great. Okay, everyone be really quiet. So yeah, that gives you a little flavor. And so our question, which I mentioned earlier, is how do we create a city built from scratch that feels alive and familiar?
So we started by making the city. We built Kiln Bay, the city our game takes place in, with our hands. We made clay castles, felt homes, and paper skyscrapers. We wanted this material choice to feel deeply intentional, something that in every moment pointed to our game's meaning. We did this as an ode to the arts and crafts we did as children and as a way to reinforce our game's central question. How do you reckon with the bittersweet nostalgia of returning home after a long absence? This process began out of an art style I had been developing where I created objects out of felt and pipe cleaners, placed them in the scanner bed of a printer, and then used those 2D images from that in my games. Early in our journey, we tried to do this, placing these flat 2D objects in a giant 3D space, but it lacked the texture and dimensionality we were looking for. Soon, inspired by dioramas and miniatures, we began to make three-dimensional objects. We collaged, massaged paper around wires, glue gun cardboard together, sewed buttons, experimented with paper mache, and twisted pipe cleaners to create the pieces of our city. Next, using a lightbox, we took photographs of these objects, edited them using Photoshop, and brought them into the game to make Kiln Bay. We've also started playing with 3D scanning some of the buildings and would love to do more of that in the future. Right now, Kiln Bay has 3 neighborhoods, the first of which is Stitch Hill. Stitch Hill is the neighborhood Abigail grew up in. It's a place bursting with community, warmth, and everyone remembering not just your name, but also that really embarrassing thing you did when you were 11. Everyone you talk to has opinions on Gianluca's Pizzeria versus Neptune's Diner's rivalry, Linda's rejection of the Homeowners Association's request, and your performance years ago at soccer camp. We chose felt and pipe cleaners, along with the occasional pom-pom or button, to reflect the warm, enveloping feeling of this community. We created border objects in the form of the bridge and the warehouses in the top left corner to mark the transition into the other neighborhoods. The bridge is made of felt and clay, while the warehouses are made of paper and felt. We wanted to reflect the way neighborhoods melt into each other rather than simply just ending. Next, we have Wharf. Wharf is a neighborhood shaped by the passage of time. What was once an active port and a large paint manufacturer is now a lively DIY arts community. While a few old grumpy old timers hang around, the artists living here love being among the fire and the smoke of the Bureau of Supernatural Disasters and the clutter of the pile of lost things. We chose paper and collage as the materials for this area to reflect the way change has shaped this place. At first, we were drawn to paper's flimsiness, the way it can be blown with the wind, but as we crafted these buildings, we discovered something. That through taking an object out of its original context, ripping it from a magazine or a book, and putting it somewhere new, you are able to create something that is more than just the sum of its parts. We created an exquisite corpse of strange and beautiful things. Finally, we have Argyle, the historic city center of Kiln Bay. It is the oldest neighborhood where clay was once magically pulled from the river and used to construct these very buildings. It's a neighborhood that not only celebrates history, but also myth and the unexplainable. Kiln Bay kids are constantly being taken on field trips to tour the Fortress of 1,000 Unfought Battles or Kiln Bay Church of Perpetual Hope, and they hope to catch a glimpse of the Lady of the Bridge, a cryptid that is rumored to sneak up to the church bell at night. We chose clay to reflect this neighborhood for the way it shows the passage of time. We warm it with our hands, let it set, and then watch as it cracks and small details fall off. We, of course, glue them back on and try to handle them with care and reverence, just like the people of Kiln Bay restore their historic landmarks. So we made these specific choices for individual neighborhoods, but overall, we chose these crafted materials to reinforce the meaning of our game. Abigail is about the bittersweet nostalgia of seeing something from your childhood, the clay and the collage and the felt, in a new way. Through digitizing these highly textured objects that have implicit meaning to us and to our players, we're able to create familiarity and an alienating distance at the exact same time. Truthfully, this is an art style we've been developing since we were kids. My mother loves arts and crafts. She volunteered to teach art classes throughout all of elementary school, planned Christmas ornament decorating parties, and we sewed my Halloween costumes together. We would spend Sunday afternoons at Michael's picking out supplies for the next craft project we would undertake. We collaged and sculpted and painted and sewed, and for me, taking these skills and developing further with my beautiful collaborators really just feels like home.
So that's how you make a city. How do you make a city that feels familiar? So we started with like just the idea of hometown. That's kind of how it came together in this like artistic collaboration of like just sharing and talking a lot about like what is home? What does that mean? And I think what we found was like just through like a lot of like talking and hanging out and like working through a lot of stories of like, you know, weird things, like I don't know, like random childhood pictures of Halloween, hanging out with your grandma. We found there's like a lot of similarities, even though we're from these like really different places. Like these like feelings are kind of the thing that feels very universal. And you know, we also just hung out a lot. If you get to know people really well, it's easier to talk about their hometown. And so we also went through like a lot of like media sharing and working through like a lot of like ironing out exactly what like flavor of nostalgia and flavor of like experience we wanted to hit. And through that, we kind of came to this conclusion of like, what we want, like a blank slate. We want like a city that is not Cleveland, Ohio, that is not Rio de Janeiro, that is not Oakland, California, it is something completely of its own. Because we want the feeling. We don't really want like the specific geographical touchstones of these places. We want the emotions that you feel when you leave and when you come back and everything else. And so a big thing for us was like creating familiar people. And I think that like a thing we struggled with for a long time was like staying away from tropes and like being worried that we were like, I don't know, we wanted to be different. I guess everyone does. what I realize is like one of the most useful tools because there's like every single person has kind of met all of the same people. Even if they don't know each other, they've never interacted in like those specific people, you've all met the same people. Everyone in this room kind of has like opinions about those people. And so it took like this, we kind of took that and ran with it, right? So we have like these sort of characters that we've built around people that you know. So Margaret. We have like she's like the I don't know, she's like the town yapper. She knows everything about everything that's happening that's going on in the city in Kiln. You know, she knows what John Lucas buying using like expired tomatoes for his pizza. She knows that like what the kids got on their math tests that hang out at the playground. And the way you interact with her is like this exchange of information. She has like this economy of like gossip, and she has opinions about everything. And she knows about everything that's going on, even though it's like filtered through the lens of like her brain. We have Chase. Chase was one of the main cast of NPCs. Chase is your friend that's not going to make it. Your friend that like every time you talk to him, you're like, hi, I'm worried about you, dog. You know, he doesn't every time you talk to him, he has a different job. Every time he's like always got like, he seems like really happy, right? Like you're like, I couldn't live the way that you live, but you seem really, really happy and really intertwined with like the things happening in like the local community in this way that makes it like, makes him a great touchstone for like what's happening. And then we have John Luca. John Luca is the local business owner. He owns the pizza shop. And it's not so much about John Luca as like a human, but the fact that like everyone in the neighborhood has grown up eating at John Luca's, and everyone has like, you know, people don't like John Luca's. People like John Luca's from 5 years ago because he was using different tomatoes then that weren't expired. And like, he's like a guy that we can't talk about anything for any amount of time, but like everyone, he kind of has built this like community pillar out of himself. And this is what we're going for. We're going for like these feelings and emotions that are all tied up and intertwined with these people and the kind of interface of those things. Like your friend that still goes to the same restaurant that you thought would be closed because of health code violations, the feeling like you have to help your friends make up after a big fight. And then, you know, you go back home and your parents are older than you remember, and your favorite bar is a parking lot, and all of your friends are fighting because of that thing, and you miss everything, and because you don't call that often because you're busy. It's a place that you know because you felt all of the things before, not necessarily because you recognize the street sign.
Okay, so we crafted a city. We used our archetypes from our lives to make the city feel familiar. So how do we make the city feel alive? Our approach to that was our game inside of a game. It's called Azulejo. In the city, Azulejo is a folk game based on collectible tiles. It is our main mechanic and how the player will interact with the world. The game takes many different shapes across the city, helping us characterize neighborhoods through the way the game is played. Sometimes those shapes are more conversational. Sometimes they are more gamey and crunchy. Sometimes there are games of divination. It all varies depending on where you are, who you're talking to, and why you're talking to them. The general loop of Azulejo is very simple. You interact with the city, you acquire a tile, and you play Azulejo. Play Azulejo might sometimes be playing soccer with an old friend. Sometimes maybe summoning a fruit from the sky to demolish a building, right? In this example right here, you kick the ball into the goal, in the playground at the soccer field at the playground, sorry. And you receive the soccer ball tile. In conversation with people, you interact with them, you can use your tile, and depending on who's you're talking to, a different interaction will pop up. That's a little messy. Let's dissect it a little bit. So the initial part is collecting. The tiles in Azulejo are symbols of the city, its people, and their experiences. As we mentioned, the tiles are acquired by interacting with the city by playing games with its inhabitants. Hitting the ball inside the goal will reward you with a soccer ball tile. Summoning the all-knowing butterfly Tanya in the woods can give you hints about other cryptids in the city. Fishing at the wharf can give you the squid tile, a symbol of the city. Finding a way into the secret lair of the king trash might reward you with the broken TV tile. Through this established language of collectibles, pulling from both things like Pokemon's gotta catch 'em all, and the way most recent Zelda games reward you from like environment exploration, we're inviting the player to experience the city, to touch it, to play around, to try stuff out. By doing that, we're creating memories of the city in the mental model of the world in the player's head. Oh, this is the sewer hole that gave me the rat skull tile. Behind this diner, I can always find nasty bugs. This is the cute kid that gave me the church bell tile that was probably acquired by illegal means. All of these new memories are rewarded with a symbol of that experience. And this symbol is used by the player to connect with NPCs in the game. What does playing Azulejo actually look like? The most common form of Azulejo in the game is the conversational variant originated in the Felt neighborhood. It's casual, chatty, call or response ask, sometimes icebreaker, sometimes trivia game, with a very simple structure. You start a conversation with an NPC, they will ask you a question, and you reply with a tile from your collection. Each character has their own question. The duo of kids in the playground might ask you, "What's the coolest thing ever?" While the neighborhood gossiper will ask you, "What's the 411?" Each tile used as an answer will trigger a different response. And since most interactions are repeatable, player can test out multiple reactions. These reactions are usually a conversation on how this specific tile answers this specific question, but sometimes more special bespoke interactions can occur. If you show the playground kids their favorite purple bug, they might feel comfortable showing you their drawings. If you impress the emo teens asking you what's the meaning of life, they might invite you to throw rocks at the spooky haunted mansion in the woods. Reactions might reward you with a tile, a secret about the city, a spicy gossip, or just a personal life anecdote. Each of these interactions exists in the space created by the intersection of the meaning of the tile, the NPC's experience, since each tile was acquired by the player, their own experience acquiring the tile, and finally Abigail's own experience. Since they're having a conversation, this is a big one because it shows that it's a good opportunity for us to talk about the passage of time. Oh, your friend's still going to that place that you're eating the same old food? Or like, oh, the kids now like purple bugs instead of the red lizards that they used to like? So that's how we're characterizing our characters, right? Oh, sorry. As we alluded before, the game morphs and changes. How the fuck do I scroll? I'm sorry. 1 second. Yeah. My bad. As we alluded before, the game morphs and changes depending on who we're talking to and mainly where you are in the city. We wanted the mechanics of the game to really reflect the places that are being played. As we said at the top of the presentation, I'm from Brazil. And I don't know if you guys know, we kind of really like soccer. So soccer is played very differently throughout the city, right? And if you go to the richer neighborhoods, they have like nice big ass grass fields. We will need like 20 people to play. Everyone needs like soccer shoes with cleats. They count the score very seriously. They count offsides, and it's a very serious game. But sometimes in other neighborhoods, you're playing on the asphalt on the street. You're playing with better food. You're using like your shoes to demark the goal, right? The game tells how the game is being played tells us a lot about where we are and who we're playing with. So that was one of our big inspirations in making the different versions of this game. In the play area, players will use water pools in a game of divination. Together with an NPC, the player will place tiles on slots, and depending on the tiles placed, a rating will be revealed. This rating is vague, mysterious, and talks about the relationship between the two people playing. The Clay District is the oldest one where the game was created. Mystical Clay was the starting point of the game and of the city, and this version is in conversation with this slightly otherworldly, ancient aspect of the town. In the patchworky collage area, it's all about community and the collective. Here, Azulejo is a process of collaborative art making. It's about people getting together to put pieces of themselves, not unlike a collage artwork. Azulejo here happens in the sigils spread around our neighborhood, where people put tiles on top. When complete, the sigils disappear, and they enact space-altering effects. In this case, putting a sea-based tile on the sigil might summon a kraken to destroy a ship, or the other tiles might trigger the demolition of a building by Isabelle's gigantic foot. It is a hopeful look on collaborative art making and the power of collective action. Power Azulejo is a flashy, bright, it's crunchy, very gamey, and very competitive. It is a game about pushing your opponent away from and dominating control points. Tiles have special effects that are very flashy with cool graphics to help you deter the enemy. It is the most recent version to arrive in Kilbay, and this version talks about the process of commercialization and marketability that Azulejo is going through. It is a version that is flashy, it is not subjective at all, it is sellable, and it comments on the appropriation of this folk game by corporations. So, what do you want with this mechanic, ultimately? We wanted two main things. One is giving depth to the things that make up the city of Kiln Bay. Since you're getting the same tile and using it in different situations with different people with different prompts, you're getting a variety of point of views on one specific aspect of the city. You can go around showing Gianluca's Pizzeria tile to everyone in town and maybe learn about his beef with the rival diner, about people's favorite pizza flavors, about the time that someone used to work there one summer. Here, Azulejo helps the player understand the city, but also helps us to build the city. Each of those objects with the corresponding tile is asking us a question. What are the different ways that people can relate to this thing in the city, right? So we have like this fountain with a baby bathing on top, right? And when we create this item in our town, we have to ask ourselves, what is someone that loves this fountain? Like what does that person looks like? Is it a historian that admires the context and the artist that created it? So what is the artist and who created it? It also helps us ask ourselves, who's the person that hates this fountain? Is it someone that had a breakup here? Is it someone that threw a coin for a wish that never came true? It also makes us ask ourselves, what is someone that's scared of this fountain? What's someone that's horny for this fountain? We don't necessarily have to answer all these questions, but those are all threads that we can pull to like really flesh out this world that you're creating. In parallel, we're also giving depth. We're also giving depth to the characters in this world. Since you can use any tile as a response for a question, you can get a person's opinion on an array of different things that make up the city. With the building blocks of the responses of each character, the player is constructing a mental model of who this person is, and this model will vary from player to player because we're not expecting you to use all of the tiles you have. On a personal note, I don't know if I mentioned, I'm from Brazil. And for the longest time growing up, I felt like I was a horrible Brazilian. I didn't really like Carnival. I didn't really like samba. I didn't love going to the beach. I didn't root for any soccer team. I felt like those were like pillars of our culture. And if I didn't love them, I was like a terrible Brazilian, right? I didn't feel like I didn't belong anywhere. And that things kept being on my brain for like all of my childhood, all of my adolescence, up until like, I still think about it every now and then. But I think growing up, one time something clicked in my brain. What connected me to the people around me was not the fact that we all loved those things. It was the fact that we had opinions of those things. We all had takes on those things. We all had experience with those things. And things that people outside maybe didn't even think about, maybe didn't even know about. This dude right here is from Ohio, right? So he has no opinion on who is better, Caetano Veloso or Tom Jobim. Even if I don't listen to like Brazilian popular music, I have a favorite. Or maybe he does, because like Brazilian music is pretty cool, it's international. But if he does, he has no favorite way of like, he doesn't have a take on what's the right way to eat acarajé, or when was the best area of our national team. 2006, that's my too. That was not rehearsed. So that's what we're trying to do here, right? We want to make the city feel alive, but having the people here all have like experiences and opinions and everything around, because that's what ultimately connects them.
Awesome. So to recap, here are the strategies we use to make a city that we built from scratch feel alive and familiar. Together, we developed a visual art style that evokes nostalgia. We used our own experiences with our hometowns and the archetypes we've encountered there to craft these characters. And we made the city and the people who live there known to the player using Azulejo, our pictorial tile game within a game. Thank you so much for listening to our talk. Yeah. If you have any desire to email us, our email's up there. We also have a QR code that goes to our link tree where you can check out our socials and our Steam page. And we also brought some little postcards if anybody wants to grab those on their way out. Yeah, thank you all so much. We potentially have time for questions. Yeah, if anybody.
You want to ask a question? Yeah. How did you handle like scoping the interactions of Azulejo to the characters? Is there like a limit of like 7 main characters in the town, or what was that like?
We're just writing a bunch.
You're just doing it with brute force.
We're not tackling it with brute force, but being very like there's no easy answer for that, right? We're just writing a whole lot. We're being very, very careful with like what tiles are created and we allow the player to get. And we're being very careful of how many people we have in the town. We do have a lot,
Yeah.
way more like than we should have, probably.
Yeah.
But and we also being careful in how what's the rate that the player is getting those tiles, right? So maybe for the first day we only allow like we only we limit the player to an area where they can only get like 5 or 6 tiles, and then we create 5 or 6 responses to every question in this tile. It is definitely a problem that bubbles up and like balloons like very quickly, but it's a tackle that we want to challenge, right? Yeah.
And there's a tack to if someone doesn't have an opinion about a tile, that also kind of tells you something about them, and we play with that when we can't think of anything. Yeah.
It was interesting when you were showing some of the like media you took inspiration from, because I saw some stuff on there that I was like, wow, those are like deep cuts to media that I really like. One of them was the wolf.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
I see the
sorry.
direction.
It's right here.
It was. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. And then like this is so cozy. And I was just curious, like on the like, in this like kind of concepting, like aesthetic underpinning, like what were you pulling from some of these like darker media hits to like weave in this what feels like very snuggly and warm and cozy? Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk about the Wolfpack one. Oh, I realized we should be probably saying the question. The question was asking us about the about the kind of like darker kind of vibed inspo that we have and how that manifests itself in the game right now. The Wolfpack is like my favorite documentary of all time. For people who don't know about it, it's about this group of boys who were raised by a father who was very controlling and like, yeah, he had religious belief. He basically decided like you're gonna live inside this apartment. But slowly as the boys got older, they started to like go into the world. I think the thing we really liked about it was that they kind of created a culture of like they were like obsessed with movies and would like obsessively watch the same movies and like write the scripts and act them out. And so this idea of like kind of creating this culture together that they really shared, I think is something that we took inspo from that. Do you have any takes on The Stranger? I truthfully do not remember why that wasn't something here before. Exactly.
It's a banger.
I mean, we're all like made up of the things that we, the people that we know, the things that we watch. So like, it's there somewhere, you know. It's there somewhere.
But yeah, I think in terms of also darker in tone, I guess I think like we have going home is kind of a miserable experience for all of us in different ways. I think there's lots of good things about going home, but in general, it has a lot of misery associated with it. And so I think that like, while I don't know, the aesthetic is a little bit brighter and more cozy, I think in terms of like the actual narrative and the dialogue and the relationships with people, it's where we pull from that tone a little bit.
So I watched you make almost all of these neighborhoods, I think, but I'm wondering which neighborhood did you struggle the most to build, either physically, like handcrafting it, or conceptually?
So I think I'm going to repeat the question. I'm asking about which neighborhood was like the hardest to build. For me, clay 100%. Because I think that clay is really like you have to warm it up. Like some of my hands would hurt. I have to like take breaks from like warming it up. I think because it also breaks, it's like cool and interesting, but also really stressful to handle because it's like we're moving it and then like the cross falls off. I feel like you're gonna say collage.
Me? Collage. I think it was just hard. Collage was like a weird one just because it was like I think I get stressed about like colors and collage it's like a nightmare.
Everything is easy to me. I'm perfect. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Any other questions?
This is such a like intentional and organic methodology that you have here for us, which is amazing. Did you have this at the beginning of the process? Did you like look forward to now and you were like, these are the things that we're gonna do, and then it all went well? And if not, what were the sort of like growing pains of
So the question is about the methodology that we approached and whether or not we like knew we were going to do this going forward. I think it was a little bit of figuring it out kind of as we go along. I mean, we knew with the media share that was really important to us because I think we really wanted to make something that the three of us were all like coming up with together and all like really, really cared about as a group. So we'd be really invested in it. Yeah. Do y'all have any takes?
Yeah, please.
No, please.
There was a lot of iteration for sure. I think we always had the North Star of like the bittersweet feeling of like coming back home. So that was like the thing that was like constant throughout the project. but it changed a bunch. Like Azulejo, it took like 10 iterations to like finally settle on where we are. And like the problems of like scaling it up and the problems of like making like something that is a little more subjective feel good to the player and like allow the player to create meaning in their heads while at the same time being something that makes sense and it's not like completely random in the world of the game. So it was a lot of trial and error. Like it took us like a semester and a half to finally find what Azulejo was really gonna be like. And we're still toying with it. It's a work in progress game, so we're still like figuring out what works and what doesn't work. I think having the North Star of like when something is working, I love saying North Star. It's a good word, okay? It's a good like phrase. Having this North Star is always good to like when we're kind of lost and we're like, is this working? Is this not working? We kind of can remember like how is it working? Like on pointing to what we want to make and what the feelings that we're trying to get of this with this thing, and what are the parts that we like making, right? So like we debated a lot because it's a lot of work to create these buildings and to like make these buildings look nice inside of the game and make these buildings look nice to each other. And we're like, oh, should we like scale back a little bit? Should we do something like simpler? And then we talk to each other and like, but that's the part that we like making. That's we love when we sit down, we put like some like random bullshit like reality TV show on a TV and we just craft for a whole Sunday, you know? So like understanding what you like about like the process of making art and what's your like final like goal helped us like guide us through this journey, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.